So I think we're coming to the end of the news cycle for The Last of Us Part 2. Things are kind of coming to an end with it. There's not really much to say anymore on the game. Unless something big happens, which I'm sure something will pop off here and there. But for the most part, things are starting to settle down a little bit, and we'll just see what the future holds for the game. Now, the user scores are kind of leveling off. My prediction has always been that it will eventually hit somewhere between a 5 and a 6, and we're getting really close to that. I know a lot of people are saying that they're holding back reviews and stuff. I can't prove that. I don't know if I don't 100% know what's going on there, so I can't really make that claim. All I know is it's going to probably end up leveling off somewhere between a 5 and a 6. And I honestly think that that's where it probably should be. Most people have a mixed feeling on it. Not the shills. The 108 perfect scores over from the critics, I don't count them. You can't trust anything they say. But I do trust, YouTubers and stuff like that. And a lot of them seem kind of mixed on it, or they don't like it. Some do like it. The general feeling that I get from the game is a 5 or a 6. And I think that that's probably a fair rating to give the game. I honestly don't think it deserves a 0. The combat in the game is pretty good. The story is the problem. I think it's a mediocre game. That's where I think the game honestly should be sitting, mediocre. And that's where it'll end up staying with user scores at the end of the day. I don't trust this 108 critic reviews. I don't think most people do. So that's where things are going to end up there. In my opinion, I think that's where things will be. Still getting a lot of defenders. CNET jumps in. The Last of Us Part 2 is getting internet hate. You can ignore it. They actually go on to mention YouTubers and stuff in this a little bit. Not too much, but they say, it's just getting a lot of YouTube hate. This game really is The Last Jedi meets video games. But I want to go into two things here. One, Japan. Japan seems to generally hate this game. There are a couple things. And then I want to talk about PewDiePie, who finished the game, rated the game. Why is that news? Well, he was probably the biggest live streamer playing this game. Up to 100,000 people watching him play this game. So I think a lot of people are interested in it. I mean, nobody had numbers like that playing this game. People were generally interested in what he thought of the game. Clips of him playing the game went viral. So I think listening to what he has to say is worth taking a look at. So Japan, here's a Japan website. Play review of The Last of Us Part 2, Ugliness, Beauty, Cruelty, and Gentleness, a story that mercilessly depicts the essence of humans. It's not a very good review. They didn't really care for it. And that seems to be a lot of the consensus coming out of Japan. If you remember, it's the tale of two IGNs. America, IGN gives it a 10 out of 10. You go to IGN Japan, they hated it. They gave it a 7 out of 10. And I think that's, for IGN, that's probably really a 5 or a 6. They kind of rate things a little higher, usually. And I saw this as well. I thought this was interesting. I saw Hirohei did a whole video on this. Sankaku Complex captured it, so I want to show you guys. There's an endless stream on what I think is probably the Japanese eBay, basically. You can go here, and there's tons of copies of this game for sale of people trying to unload on it. More than I've seen so far over here in America. They do not like this game. Everything that I've seen coming out of people in Japan shows that they just don't care for this game at all. They hate it, in fact, in most cases. And this is pretty wild, isn't it? Look at all these used copies. I don't think that they care for the game over there. But to be fair, you'd have to... I don't know how well they liked the first one. So It's interesting if people in Japan really loved the first one and they hate this one so much. I'm not sure how they felt about the game over there. I would be interested in finding out what they rated. Like, what were outlets over in Japan giving the first one compared to this one? I would be interested in maybe doing a comparison to that, because there's more hate coming out of there than over here, in my opinion, for this game. People really just don't seem to care for it over there. And then finally, we have a final score coming from PewDiePie, which he had some interesting comments. Overall, it seems like he didn't hate the game, but he didn't like it. I think he has the same feelings most people have. Like, the game has a lot of problems. Somebody said, maybe it was him, I'm not sure, you have to fact check me on it, but somebody said the game story, maybe this was somebody, I can't remember who said it, but they compared it to like a college essay rough draft that should have been revised like 7 times. I think that's actually a fair assumption of the game's story. It could have been really good, but they didn't revise it enough, and we ended up with a lot of cringe and a lot of trash. Good gameplay, some good stuff in the story, but overall, like, a lot of cringe and a lot of mistakes. So we can go here. Let's say, I think everything was a mess. So I didn't have much expectations after that, PewDiePie said after completing The Last of Us 2. He then went out to single out the way The Last of Us 2's story was structured as the main reason why the game didn't land with him. If they had just changed the order of things, I think it would be better. Maybe tighten up some parts, he said. I guess I would rather play the game than a really mediocre game, even though I really, really didn't like it. He said that he wouldn't play through The Last of Us 2 again, but would consider it if the game had been a little bit shorter. We go down here. He had some praise for the game. For example, he said that it was a good thing that The Last of Us 2 featured 2 ladies that liked each other and was going to be played by millions of people. He added that he had a lot of fun streaming the game as well. Ultimately, he rated The Last of Us 6 out of 10 and stated he didn't hate it, which is interesting when he says up here that he really, really didn't like it. Which one is it, Felix? Which one is it? So that's pretty much it with it. I think that there's really not much more to say about it when it comes to this game, unless something big happens. It's been a pretty crazy mess following The Last of Us 2, and I wonder, will anything else pop off? But for now, PewDiePie's done with it. He really, really hates it, but he liked it. Which one is it? 6 out of 10, which I think is an appropriate score, to be honest, for the game. I think a 6 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, even in some cases, if you really wanted to make the argument, a 7. But I think a 6 is appropriate, and that's still really sad considering the first game was a solid 10 out of 10. So, anyway, that's it. Shorter video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about all of this. Also, if you would, throw a like up, share the video, make sure you're still subscribed. Subscribe if you're new, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.
How dare you!